I watched Madam Web, so you don't have to. Yeah, it's shameful to admit that, and the only reason why I saw it was because I had a couple of class cancellations which freed up my afternoon. And it was not worth it. Going to a lecture on the importance of abstinence would be more entertaining than watching Madam Web. I can't even give it the benefit of being fun bad. It was just a boring movie. If Stan Lee were still alive, he'd tie Madam Web to a tree and old Yeller its ass. To put it simply, the Sonyverse is struggling. They just can't seem to make a good movie that doesn't revolve around Spider-Man. And while I wouldn't say Madam Web is worse than Morbius, they are both in the same tier, and it doesn't give me much hope for one of their upcoming projects, Kraven the Hunter. Normally when I review something so you don't have to, I try to break it down and discuss the main issues. But with Madam Web, there's just not a single good thing. They somehow did everything wrong, from the characters to narrative, and I don't even know how to summarize it, so apologies if this video goes a bit off the rails. I'll try my best and focus on the film with what little information I was given. The first issue that needs to be addressed is the marketing behind the film. Even before it was released, there was little to no advertisement for Madam Web, and what we were given only contributed to the idea that Hollywood is utterly doomed. The lead actress, Dakota Johnson, stated the script went through drastic changes after she signed on, even claiming she didn't know what scenes were being filmed at times because a large chunk of the movie was reportedly ad-libbed and simply told what to say in front of a blue screen. If that's true, then we've reached a new era in cinema laziness. Call-out scenes are not something you use when making multi-million-dollar productions. That's something you use when making a goddamn YouTube video. That's what fucking SML movies uses when making all their videos, and the only reason why they can maintain an audience and get decent monetization is because they actually understand who their target demographic is. With Marvel and Madam Web, they seem to be catering to every fan base except for the people who actually enjoy superhero films. I know I just used Stan Lee for a joke, rest in peace Excelsior, but I genuinely feel like his death greatly contributed to the death of Marvel and the MCU. Because without the creator behind these multi-million-dollar properties to serve as a mediator to the boneheads in Hollywood, then the franchise is at the mercy of whoever buys their intellectual rights and are free to go with whatever sick, delusional direction they decide to take. In the case of Madam Web, once again, it's prioritizing representation above good storytelling. Not that I'm calling Madam Web a groundbreaking example of female representation in cinema, because, as stated before, the film is a complete mess, and that doesn't exclude from its characters. Not a single character in this movie has any personality whatsoever. I feel like this is largely contributed to not having a solid script when filming, because you're not even watching actors play over-exaggerated characters. You're watching individuals lazily blurt lines that never once feel like something an authentic human being would say. This is one of the few films that I actually took notes while watching, and, I mean, it made the script writing process hell of a lot easier, because I genuinely feel like I would not remember a single detail from this film had I not been writing it down. Spoilers, every character in this film is nothing but a plot point vessel. For starters, the main villain of this movie, Ezekiel, is one of the most cartoonishly, lazily written villains I've ever seen. This is no melodramatic character by any means. He's only there to be the bad guy because the movie needs a villain to make the protagonist, the Spider-Women, look like heroes. Which they're really not, but I'll talk about that later. I shit you not, his very first line of dialogue, our introduction to this big bad, was, "Well, that's why I agreed to be your bodyguard, because he told me we're so close to finding the spider that can give us superpowers." Yeah, I don't think every modern Hollywood production uses AI, but at the same time, they're not beating those allegations. What the actual fuck? That sounds like dialogue a child would come up with when playing with their superhero action figures. That's the second complaint I have about these characters. There's nothing that signifies they're superheroes or that this is a superhero film. If it wasn't for the Marvel logo that plays before the movie starts, I would have just assumed this was some kind of low-budget fandom inspired by Stranger Things and Wednesday. I did not realize how much Sony loves to recycle, because they reused almost the entire ending of this movie for their trailers. The Spider-Women don't even get their costumes until the final fight, which can't even be called that. The only exception is during a few of Madam Web's premonitions, but otherwise you're just watching a bunch of women play pretend. Madam Web in particular has no personality at all. The only insight we get about her background is that she's a paramedic and thus wants to help people. but when given the task of protecting the 3 other Spider Women, she wants nothing to do with it and just dumps them and their problems onto others. The other 3 Spider Women are undoubtedly the most forgetful female heroes also. They're never even acknowledged by their superhero names. They're addressed by their aliases, and even then, that's still very rare. It's mostly just, "Lady, go over there! You, protect that girl!" Like, how are we supposed to feel connected to any of these characters when they don't even try to flush them out or make them memorable in any sort of way? There's only 2 characters in the entire film that actually impact the story going forward. And just like everything else discussed so far, it's underwhelming, which perfectly reflects the quality of the film and how they chose to handle its narrative. The movie's about Cassie, aka Madam Web, who, after unlocking her powers to see into the future, uses this knowledge to protect the Spider Women who are being hunted by Ezekiel, and the big revelation is that it was her mother who found the special spider that can grant them superpowers, and after finding it, was killed by Ezekiel. Because her mother was bitten while she was pregnant, Cassie acquired the powers, which didn't unlock until that scene in the trailers where she hits her head after a car crashed into the water. That's the whole narrative. The only driving factor for this film is this single vision of them dying. After killing Cassie's mother, Ezekiel also gains the power to see into the future. And once Cassie unlocks her visions, he has a vision of the Spider Women killing him. So now he goes on this manhunt to try and kill the Spider Women before they can kill him, and the Spider Women don't even try to fight him. They just spend majority of the movie running and hiding. Talk about a profound, deep, complex narrative. Most scenes don't make any sense, and I'm not going to bother to try to break them down because they didn't care, so why should you? I've said before, there's nothing to really signify that this is a superhero film, and that includes a lack of action. I'm actually baffled how Dakota Johnson claims most of the filming was in front of a blue screen, when there was absolutely no reason for one at all. Not a single character has any sort of complex powers that would require the use of a green/blue screen. The most complex is maybe Ezekiel, who along with Visions has like a poison touch, but I don't even think there was a single explosion during the movie. In fact, the superheroes don't even fight the bad guy. Every time he finds the Spider Women, what happens is Madam Web just runs him over with a vehicle. The first time it was with a taxi, and then the second time it was with an ambulance. Why be a strong, independent woman when you could just hit somebody with your car? The superheroes end up doing more harm to the bad guy than he does to them. I don't think there was a single moment where Ezekiel even laid so much as a single hand on them, yet the Spider Women are out there hitting him with every single motor vehicle that's left unlocked. Most of his scenes are just him kind of strunting towards them. It's quite literally just that SpongeBob meme of he's just standing there menacingly. I get that he killed Cassie's mother, so he's not innocent by any means, but the Spider Women do nothing throughout the film, and in the end, they don't even defeat him. He beats himself. Basically, Madam Web uses her visions to position him where the environments can do all the work in like this 30-second montage that ends with him falling out of a window and getting crushed by a sign. That's it. That's how they win. And you better believe there was not a single training montage or some kind of team building exercise throughout this film. At the end, Madam Web learns how to use her powers because she ends up going blind, so with only foresight now, she was apparently able to master it to its max potential. You cannot convince me that that was planned. 100% what happened was somebody at Sony decided to actually research the character they were making a movie about, and after already having the script ready, they realized, oh shit, guys, she's supposed to be blind. So they just added that detail at the end in hopes of catering to comic book accuracy. Absolute trash. This was by no means an entertaining film. I know I said I'd put in the same tier as Morbius, but at least that movie was fun bad and we got some noteworthy memes from it. Madam Web just has nothing of value except for this one scene, which I'm willing to bet a large sum of money you wouldn't know unless you had the internet pointed out. So, the Spider Women keep hiding from Ezekiel, but no matter where they go, he finds them because, spoilers, Ezekiel got down and did the dirty with an NSA woman and now has access to every surveillance around the globe. So with this technology, he's able to track them, and when the Spider Women realize this, they need to go somewhere that doesn't have cameras. Thus, they go to Cassie's friend, Ben, and hide out in his basement. And that works! Until they decide to leave the basement because a woman who was staying with Ben, Mary, has her water break, and so they all go to the hospital for no reason and end up putting Ben and Mary's life in jeopardy. If you haven't figured it out yet, then you better go to Uncle Ben's grave and pay your respects. Which is where I'd like to send Sony, because I did not know the significance of or who these two characters were supposed to be until after reading the credits. Not once while watching did I get the message that this was supposed to be a prequel to Spider-Man. They were trying so hard not to reference any connections that I just assumed they messed up the ending to No Way Home and thought the world forgot who Spider-Man was. The implication that Madam Web is the reason the world will one day have a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is pathetic. Mary would have given birth just fine had they either stayed in the basement or not shown up in the first place. I'm a 20-year-old college student who should be butt-chucking beers, and even I can tell you how to fix this scene. If Madam Web simply had a vision after Ben and Mary left of something bad happening to them, then that pushes the narrative and gives the Spider-Women a reason to leave the house, in which case they would have actually saved them and been heroes. But instead, the women go with Ben and Mary just for company, I guess, and get spotted and put the entire hospital in jeopardy, including the Parkers. 0 out of 10 writing. If Ben's nephew comes out deformed with 2 heads or something, then you know who to blame. Anyways, that's my take on this dumpster fire of a movie. It's amazing just how little effort went into it, and I don't really see what the point of it was, because all it makes me hope for is that Ben and Mary keep that child far away from any Spider-Women. For all the hate people give stuff like early 2000s writing, I argue it's significantly better than what we're given today. I can't believe this is the direction the industry is going, and I hope they have an epiphany and get their shit together. That's really about it. So...